All right, so we're diving deep today, really deep. You're here because you want to know, like really understand
Yeah.
something pretty fundamental. Why is it so hard to do the things we know we should be doing?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we all have those things,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Goals, dreams, things we want to achieve.
But then something stops us.
And that's what we're tackling today. We're going headfirst into Steven Pressfield's The War of Art, using the excerpts you sent to break down his big ideas.
And ultimately, our mission here, our goal, is to equip you, the listener, with the tools and insights to not just identify, but actually overcome these invisible roadblocks that are keeping you from doing your best work, whatever
Yeah.
that looks like for you.
Absolutely. And the core concept in Pressfield's work, like the foundation of all of this, is this thing he calls resistance. Now, the thing about resistance is it's not a physical thing, right? It's not something you can see or touch.
Or here?
Exactly. But you can definitely feel it.
Oh, you feel.
It's almost like this negative energy, almost like a force field that pops up whenever you're about to do something that truly matters to you, something with real potential. And its whole purpose, its only job is to like push you away, distract you, and stop you from actually doing that thing.
So for our listeners, understanding this resistance thing, that's like step one.
That's the key.
Okay, so you're talking about this energy field that pushes us away from our goals.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us an example, like something that might resonate with someone listening right now? What would that feel like in their daily life?
Totally. So think about a project, that project you've been meaning to start, that creative idea you've been playing around with, or even, just like a good habit you're trying to build. Now, when you think about actually starting that thing, what comes to mind first?
Oh, this is getting real.
Right. Is there a little bit of, unease, a sudden urge to, like, check your phone?
Oh, the phone. Always the
Or
phone.
maybe a little voice in your head saying, hey, you need to do more research first.
Research, yes.
Yeah.
You'd read one more article.
That feeling, that urge, that voice, that's resistance in action.
It's like our brains are wired to avoid this, even if it means like giving up on something we actually want.
Right, because it's tied to this potential discomfort, right? The discomfort of growth, of creation. And Pressfield says the cost of giving into that resistance, it's huge.
So what's the price we pay for giving in?
Well, he talks about how most of us live two lives. There's the life we're actually living right now with all its routines and maybe like unfulfilled desires. And then there's this unlived life that's inside of us.
The life where we're actually going for it.
Yeah, where you're pursuing those goals and reaching your potential. And Pressfield puts it pretty bluntly. He says, most of us have two lives, the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the two stands resistance.
That hits hard.
Mm.
So then the question for us, for anyone listening, becomes, what's it costing you to let that gap between those two lives just keep growing?
Exactly. It's recognizing that those dreams, those aspirations you're holding on to, they're being actively blocked by this force you can't even see.
Okay, so is this just something that like creative people struggle with?
Yeah.
Artists, writers, entrepreneurs? Or is it a more universal thing?
This is for everyone. It's completely universal. Pressfield makes this really intense comparison to show how strong and how irrational this resistance can be. He says, it was easier for Hitler to start World War II than it was for him to face a blank square of canvas.
Whoa, that's a huge statement.
Right. Obviously, the scale of those things is totally different. But his point is that the resistance we feel towards our own work, our own meaningful pursuits, it can be ridiculously strong.
So even starting something small can feel impossible.
Right. Way harder than it should be.
And it's not just beginners, right? We're not talking about people just starting out.
No, not at all. He gives the example of Henry Fonda, the actor.
Yeah.
Legendary, decades of experience. Even at 75 years old, right before going on stage, he would reportedly throw up from pre-performance anxiety.
Wow.
That's resistance. It's showing up even in the most accomplished people at the highest levels.
So what you're saying is that feeling of like unease or just not wanting to do something, it's not a sign that you're not good enough. It might actually be a sign that you're on the right track.
Exactly. It's a sign that you're about to do something that really matters.
Okay. So we know it's there, it's powerful, it affects everybody. But how does this resistance thing actually try to sabotage us in our daily lives? Like, what are its go-to moves?
Resistance is a master of disguise. It shows up in so many sneaky ways. Fear, of course, is a big one. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, even fear of success sometimes.
Oh, yeah, that's a real thing.
But it also loves to use rationalization. Pressfield calls it resistance's right-hand man. It's that voice in your head that comes up with perfectly good excuses for why you can't start that work right now. I need to do more research.
It's not the right time.
I'm not feeling inspired.
Yeah.
Classic resistance tactics.
It's designed to protect us from putting ourselves out there, right?
Exactly, to shield us from that vulnerability.
I've been there, stuck in that loop of just preparing and never actually starting.
And then you've got distraction. Social media, emails, that sudden urge to clean the whole house when you should be working.
It's amazing how appealing cleaning subtly becomes.
It's resistance, pulling you away from what you need to be doing. And of course, there's procrastination. Pressfield is pretty straight up about this. He says, we don't just put off our lives today. We put them off till our deathbed.
Oh, wow. That's dark, but I get it. So knowing all of this, knowing resistance's tricks, how do we fight back? How do we get to the work that actually matters to us?
Here's where Pressfield brings in a game changer. The shift from being an amateur to becoming a professional. And it's not about if you're getting paid for your work.
It's not about your skill level.
No, it's all about your mindset, your approach. He lays out what makes a professional in this context.
Okay, break it down for us. What does it mean for our listeners to adopt this professional mindset when it comes to their goals?
So, number one, a professional shows up every day, no matter what.
Rain or shine.
They're committed to the schedule, they're dedicated to the work. Even if they're not feeling it, it's not a hobby, it's a focused effort.
So consistency is key.
Huge. And they're committed for the long haul. They understand big achievements take time.
No quick fixes.
No, sir. For the professional, the stakes are high because this work matters to them. They understand their worth. They understand the value exchange of their efforts.
So treat your goals with the same seriousness as, like, a job.
Exactly. And another big thing, they don't over-identify with their job. They're invested in the work, but their whole identity isn't writing on every project. They're always mastering their craft, always learning and improving.
So always pushing to be better.
Always. And they keep a sense of humor about it all. They know setbacks and mistakes happen. They're part of the process. And maybe most importantly, they use feedback to learn and grow, good or bad.
You mentioned something before that really stood out. The professional's relationship with fear.
Oh yeah, this is huge. The amateur thinks they have to conquer their fear before they can even begin. They're waiting for that moment when they feel totally confident and fearless. The professional. They know fear is always there, and they act anyway.
So you don't wait for the fear to go away.
Nope, you do it scared.
Do it scared.
Yeah.
I like that. Reminds me of that quote about inspiration.
Pressfield tells this great story about Somerset Maugham, the writer. Someone asked him if he only wrote when inspiration struck. And Maugham says, I write only when inspiration strikes, he replied. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp.
Ha ha, I love that. So commit to the schedule. Show up. That's what it means to turn pro.
Exactly. And Pressfield nails it when he says resistance hates it when we turn pro. It's like you're taking away its power.
Like saying, I'm not waiting for permission, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So when we do turn pro, is it just about getting the work done? Are there other benefits?
Pressfield suggests that when you commit to the work that's really yours, something bigger happens. He calls it a synergistic effect. He says, when we sit down day after day and keep grinding, something mysterious starts to happen. A process is set into motion by which inevitably and infallibly heaven comes to our aid. Unseen forces enlist in our cause. Serendipity reinforces our purpose.
So dedication opens up new possibilities.
It's like you tap into this flow of support that you wouldn't find otherwise.
It makes me think about finding your true calling.
Absolutely. And Pressfield has this question that really gets to the heart of that. He asks, of any activity you do, ask yourself, if I were the last person on earth, would I still do it?
Wow.
It helps you figure out what you truly love, the things you do for you, not for anyone else. He compares this to the hack, someone always trying to please others instead of following their own path.
It's like you need that internal compass to keep going when things get tough.
Absolutely. If you're only motivated by external stuff, it's easy to give up.
Because ultimately, Pressfield says creative work, or any work that comes from your true self, it's not selfish, it's a gift.
He calls it a gift to the world and every being in it. And he gives this powerful call to action. He says, don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got.
It's not just about you, it's about what you bring to the world.
Exactly.
So to wrap up our deep dive into the war of art, it seems like the big takeaway is this. Recognize that resistance is everywhere, and then choose to become a professional to overcome it.
And in doing that, you unlock your potential, not just for yourself, but for everyone else too.
It's about showing up, committing to the work, acting even when you're afraid, and staying connected to what truly drives you. That's how you close that gap between the life you're living and the life you could be living.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And on that note, here's a final thought for you all. Think about the one thing in your life right now that you're resisting the most. What if that resistance is actually a signpost pointing you towards something truly meaningful, something that has the potential to make a real impact?
Something to think about.
It definitely is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.